Chapter 1 Brockett Hall, Hertfordshire, England, 1815, William Lamb. William Lamb sat at his son Augustus's bedside. The boy was fitfully trying to fall asleep. Brockett Hall was dark and lonely that night. Even the silent shadows seemed menacing. The Lambs still weren't used to the darkness of the countryside, and it would take some adjustment. Their family had recently moved their household back to their country estate, Brockett Hall, to quiet the suggestions of an affair between Lady Caroline Lamb and the upstart poet Lord Byron. That, and Lamb had hoped it would keep Lady Caroline a safe distance from a growing physical threat as well as a social one. Though Lamb was a rational man, it never hurt to be careful. There was a rumor the vampires that had plagued London society a decade earlier were making a vicious reappearance. A few society ladies were reported to have been turned in the middle of the night by those very beasts. Personally, Lamb had feared that his wife's notoriously unpredictable behavior would easily make her into a vampire's victim. Lamb's wife, Caroline, wouldn't sit with him and Augustus that night, though he wished she had. She was far too energetic, even for this late hour. She went for a brisk walk among the empty halls to find a wide window so that she could bathe in the moonlight. Lamb was worried for Caroline, as her behavior had become increasingly strange, even for an eccentric. Having been married for almost 10 years now, he knew well that his wife was far from the typical English lady. Her rumored affair with Lord Byron had been so embarrassing for their family. Surely it hadn't even happened. Caroline had always been more passionate than a proper English lady ever should be in public. But that did not mean that she had anything to do with Byron. Lamb knew that nothing was beneath his social enemies to accuse his poor Caroline of such a gross indiscretion. That would be just like them. Anything to make Lamb squirm. Caroline was Lamb's strength and weakness. Anyone who saw him with Caroline could easily discern that fact. Augustus whimpered out of fright as a sudden chill seemed to catch him. There was a distant clattering of glass breaking, followed by a woman's piercing scream. "Caroline!" Lamb leapt to his feet without thinking. He couldn't hide the initial fear in his voice, but quickly checked himself, for he felt the terrified eyes of his only living child on him. He stopped then and took the silver cross off his neck and placed it in his son's small hands. "Hold on to this, Augustus, and don't let it go until Papa returns, all right? It will keep you safe." Despite his own fear, Lamb gently addressed his son with reassuring authority. Augustus nodded, but his eyes were still wide with panic. He gripped his father's anti-vampire crucifix in his shaking hands. Lamb hadn't meant to scare Augustus, but he knew he must go see what had become of Caroline. He kissed the boy's cheek and promised, "Papa will be back in a moment. Be a brave boy now." Always on his person, Lamb had at least one silver dagger and one stake. The Lambs were from a long line of vampire hunters and demon slayers, acknowledged by the royal family as one of a proud few. When the recent complaints of the English nobility came to him, Lamb knew he'd have to use the Order's secret knowledge to help London society rid itself of the fanged menace, like his father and uncles had done in the time of King George III. Once he had put enough distance between the nursery where Augustus slept and himself, Lamb began to shout for his wife, "Caroline! Caroline, where are you?" There was a dead silence for several moments. Still, Lamb continued to run in the direction of Caroline's earlier screams. Had she even heard him? Had someone hurt her, or had she tried to hurt herself again? These rapid questions plagued Lamb as his mind tortured him over Caroline's well-being. Loud laughter, mad, uncontrolled laughter, broke through the unnatural silence. Lamb recognized that it was Caroline's. She was much closer now, just down the hall from him. "I'm coming, Caroline. I'm here, and I won't let anyone hurt you, not even you." As Lamb charged into the room where Caroline's laughter had come from, the words died in his throat. Standing in the middle of the room was Caroline, in the dim light. Her eyes were redder than her strawberry blonde hair, nearly matching the color of the blood beating on her neck. She was standing with her blouse torn open, laughing. The moon acted as a spotlight, as if she was an actress playing a Shakespearean mad scene. Was she Ophelia or Lady Macbeth? It was difficult to say. She seemed to glow with power, not what Lamb expected from the victim of a vampire attack, though her bloodied neck and unnatural eyes were undeniable proof of a successful change. "Oh, Caroline!" Lamb's voice broke as he felt extremely weak in the knees, realizing he was far too late. Hope for Caroline's future deadened in Lamb's overly sympathetic chest. Once changed, a vampire's victim was forever lost to the world of the living. As a vampire hunter himself, he knew this sad fact all too well. The open window behind Caroline's glowing white frame sprayed a torrent of wind from outside. Her golden chopped hair was flung about her face and made her seem all the more unworldly. But then, just as she seemed to be the embodiment of an unearthly goddess, she sank to the floor as if her life had been drained out of her. Lamb ran forward to catch Caroline before she crashed to the ground. Her small body was radiating a chill in his arm. This nightmare confirmed his worst fears for him. He didn't think to care for his own safety. If Caroline bit him while he held her, then so be it. An amused laugh shocked Lamb, who, in his distress, forgot it was highly unlikely that he and Caroline were alone. The vampire who changed her would most likely still be nearby, since she had been so recently turned. It was a man's laugh, and one that Lamb realized was vaguely familiar. He knew this vampire. A pair of deep blood-red eyes had watched them the entire time. His work now complete, for Lady Caroline Lamb was no longer a member of the living. Then the vampire stepped out of shadow, further terrorizing William Lamb. Lord Byron stood over the couple, his victim unconscious, still bleeding from her neck, her horrified, bereft husband clinging to what remained of her. "How could you? Gentlemen are supposed to protect ladies from such brutality," Lamb cried indignantly. "Then it appears that you've mistaken me for a gentleman, Mr. Lamb. You aren't the first to do so, and you won't be the last." Byron smiled, flashing his fangs, still red with Caro's blood. "You took unfair advantage, Lord Byron. You knew that my wife was unwell." "That would make us a most suited pair, I should think, Mr. Lamb. Everyone from London to Scotland has accused me of madness." Byron waved a careless gloved hand. "But I don't suppose that you'd understand what that's like." "Is this a joke to you? You've murdered my wife. Her life is forfeit because of your ruinous lust." "She's not dead. Well, not entirely." He looked down at Caroline's motionless form. "Look here, Lamb. I don't know you very well, but I know she was bored witless with you. I simply did her the favor she asked of me. I have some understanding of honor, you know, for I can't ever allow a lady's request to go unanswered." He smiled again. His was an awful, mocking smile. "Favor? My God! Did Caroline ask you to turn her?" Lamb felt his whole body freeze up, as if Byron's crimson gaze had the power to turn him to stone. Yes, she had been insisting on it for some time now. She even stalked into my apartments in London several times demanding that I do it. Often she followed me to parties like some besotted fan, making a general fool of herself and a mockery of your marriage for everyone to see. No, Caroline wouldn't. She has our son to care for. She would never betray us like that, just because she's been ill before. How dare you suggest? Lamb verbally attacked Byron, who had begun to feel bad for the willfully unseeing man before him. Lamb had defended Caroline before, and would defend her again until the ends of the earth. His habit to blindly do so had caused him to fight with his own mother often enough. She wanted Caroline committed to an asylum to keep the family name from further scandal, but Lamb always refused. He would care for Caroline and their son himself. He couldn't abandon her to die a horrid death in a cold institutional cell. She was ill, but not a monster, never a burden. He swore to protect her and love her until they were both long dead. When he swore something, William Lamb kept his word. "Who am I to deny a lady her heart's desire?" Lord Byron shrugged, his unnatural irises blazing. "But another man's wife, and an ill woman at that?" Lamb asked, his voice going soft out of disbelief. Lamb was trying to find something decent, something merciful in Byron, but he found nothing. The eyes that bore into him were ruthless in their disinterest. Regret was apparently not an emotion that a vampire indulged in, neither was guilt. His lordship's unrepentant attitude made that painfully clear. "Your lady is quite persuasive, Mr. Lamb. I knew she wouldn't stop asking until I did it. You see, I really didn't have a choice if I wanted to live in peace." Byron said, putting up his hands in mock surrender. Feeling powerless, William Lamb sunk down to the floor. He allowed himself the liberty to cry on his wife's cold chest. Her wild heart would never beat again. Caroline may be half alive when she recovered from the shock of the change, but she would never be the same after Byron turned her. The public affair was devastating, but the gossip would eventually die out. However, the effects of Lady Caroline's change never would, forever haunting the Lambs afterwards.